Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Right Way podcast. Today, I'm joined by Henry. Henry is a fellow online coach and enhanced bodybuilder. Henry, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing,
Thank
big
you,
man?
man. Yeah, all good.
All good?
Living the bodybuilder life,
Yeah,
as it
all
will.
settled in.
Yeah. Sorry, I missed that. What was that?
I said, are you all settled into the new gaff?
Oh, not fully, mate. It's only been 2 days. It's just everything's in boxes still, but
Yeah,
getting there. It just takes a while, doesn't it, mate?
yeah. So there's a couple things I wanted to discuss with you. First thing, obviously, being I always like to understand kind of like what got you kind of into this journey. So essentially, what got you into bodybuilding?
Oh, so don't know. It's basically the same as everyone, isn't it? You see big people, and you're like, you get interested. And I think the first time I was exposed to that, as I went to a gym with my dad. It was like a private gym.
Mm.
Ex Mr. Britain, I think another Mr. Britain run it. There's a few big lads there, and then you just sort of hooked on it as soon as you see it, and it's like you either love it or you don't. And never really trained that seriously. I mean, I was only like 15 at the time, so I didn't really train seriously. Sort of, you know, that sort of point where you train for fun, but then you don't follow a diet, you don't do anything like that. You're just training. That's all you're doing. And there's around, I think maybe when I was about 19 or 20, I'd say 20, is when I really started to like actually focus on the diet side of things, actually have some structure with training. And that's when I actually made some progress more than anything.
Okay. Um, and like within bodybuilding, did you ever like from that age, did you when you say like you started following like a diet plan, was it like something serious or was it kind of just like everyone's kind of approach where it's just like eat shit tons of chicken and rice and just kind of hope for the best kind of thing? Or was it like were you doing it on your own or was this like before you kind of seeked any help kind of thing?
No, no. So the first diet I followed is I was worked with Jace. I think, yeah, it was maybe 2021, maybe 2020 actually.
Mhm.
Uh, I dropped him a message because I had no clue what I was doing. I don't know how I followed him. I think I saw him at Crayford once. I dropped him a message and worked with him for a dieting phase for a lad's holiday to where was it, Iron Apple. And so the first diet I followed was actually sort of getting lean for that.
Mhm.
Um, and then off the back of that, I then thought, oh yeah, I'll do my own growing phase, and that's when I done that whole fuck up of I just ate everything in sight really, and I think I put on about 10 kilos in like 15 weeks. And it was just literally
Turn
like
into
it
a
was
jungle.
pointless. Yeah, yeah.
Lovely. In regard to like when you started taking it seriously, did um did you ever like try and put on like a load of size natural before you went enhanced? Well, actually, first of all, when did you make the decision to go to enhanced, and what was
Oh
kind of?
mate, that was before I was with Jace. I was like
Oh,
18.
really? Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't even diet. I was still eating the fucking sandwiches at sixth form, mate. And, it was you know, you sometimes you make stupid decisions. And the way I look at it, everyone's like, oh, if I go back, I'll do it differently. But no one knows enough unless you're lucky enough to like start it when you're with a coach and do it the right way. Oh, that's the name of the podcast, isn't it? But do it in a way that you sort of do it naturally first, which is the way that it should be done. But I was just I just wanted to get big,
Mhm.
and I thought that was the answer. So I just did that before any of the taking diet seriously, taking training seriously. I just jumped straight into that.
Mhm. And when you first went on, was it just like everyone else's approach where you just kind of go into like a bodybuilding forum and just kind of see what all the big guys are doing and think like, oh, I'll try that? Or is it more of a kind of calculated approach?
No, it wasn't anything excessive. It was just like a tiny bit of T-bol, which is an oral, because
Mm.
I didn't want to do anything more than oral to start, and I was like, oh, I'll just do that. The few boys I knew was doing it. Mate, I made no progress on it, like zero, zero. But that's sort of where it started, and then I done my first, what I consider like that was still a proper cycle. But by a proper cycle, I mean like with a coach, with nutrition in place. When I was with Jace, and it's just been like that ever since, really.
Okay. And when did it like transition into like, right, I actually want to be a bodybuilder and actually start kind of going down this kind of path?
So yeah, I did that dieting phase with Jace. I said to him at the end of it, I was like, I want to compete. And I remember even start when I got back from that, and I said I did that like stupid grind phase where I just ate everything. I
Hmm.
remember even making my own log on, the Train by JP forum.
Yeah.
It was like Henry Reedy's log to become a
10
men's
sandwiches a
physique
day.
athlete. I wanted to do men's physique at the start.
Oh, don't we all?
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, which is stupid because my legs are my strongest muscle group. But at the time, I was like, nah, that's what I'll do. Um, and then so I did that grind phase, and then had to diet again because that was terrible.
Mhm.
And then I did a proper off season. That's when the after that dieting phase, I did that with Jace. Then I sort of during that time is when I learned to become a coach and done all that. So then I did my next off season on my own, which went quite well because I actually knew what I was doing a bit then. I knew more about the drug side of things, nutrition training. So that was all going well. And then it was sort of leading up to lockdown, or I think it was within the first lockdown is when I approached Tom to take over. And that's when it sort of started to get a bit more serious in the direction towards like competing. And then I did a prep with Tom in 2021, got to 2 weeks out, and just a few things in that prep went wrong. We just way over dieted me, and I didn't end up stepping on stage. I think it was about 10 days out, and we just said like the look just wasn't there. We couldn't bring it back to life because it was just trashed. So I went back into off season for another 18 months, and then that's when I actually prepped and competed, which was this year.
Mhm. And like speaking about that prep, because I remember, I mean, I've seen you once in the gym like prior, but I think when I first followed you was when you were doing your first prep. How with this prep, obviously didn't over diet and you fucking done bits. But what I kind of wanted to touch on was like what was your mindset going into that prep? Because you touched on the fact kind of you doubted yourself quite a lot going into that prep, right?
Yeah, yeah. My goal really was just to not look out of place. Like that's all I wanted to. That's all I really wanted to do was like, because I think what was in my head was I always saw that look that I had in 2021. I was like
Mm,
155 pounds at the end of that prep. So I was like, if I can come in at like 170 pounds, stand on a stage as a junior and not look out of place, that's a big leap up from the position I was in.
mm,
It turns out I think I was 185 pounds on stage. So I was like 30 pounds heavier this prep than last.
mm,
So it was a completely different look than I was expecting, but I still had that doubt because I was so set on how that physique looked in 2021 that I was like, it's not going to be too much different to that. Like I thought it would have been what 10, 15 pounds heavier, which would have looked okay. But it wouldn't have won a show at 170, I don't think.
mm. And was that doubt like literally throughout the entire prep, like to the point where you stood on stage, or was it literally kind of after you like won? Was it like, oh shit?
So it's weird, isn't it, with shows because you go to get your tan the night before,
Mm,
and I saw the whole of my class in the test. So I say I saw, so as you can see, I wear glasses, right? When you're getting full body spray tans, you got to take your glasses off. So I saw blurs of the people I was going to be competing against. So I
yeah.
had like a sort of rough idea, and I sort of had a bit of confidence then because no one. Well, there was two lads, which was second and third, Tom and Ryan. The names are. They was quite sharp,
Mm,
but then they were very structurally similar to me, like same height, same sort of build. The other two lads, they was quite big, but there was nowhere near in shape. And I was like, right, so this is looking relatively good now. So I think that chilled me out a little bit then. I was like, I think I'm definitely going to be able to hold my own. I didn't think I would win at that point.
mm.
But yeah, I think it was literally until the day before, I think, mate. That was yeah.
Yeah, so so the day of when you were on there, you were like pretty confident that you would do all right. But did you think that like you were gonna win at all? Or was it like a complete kind of like what the fuck moment?
Yeah, so I mean, what I think a lot of my confidence in the day of the show, because I was really chilled on the day of the show, come
Mm,
from like I sort of when I woke up, I said to myself, I was like, look, done everything I could this prep. I haven't made any fuck ups. I haven't cheated on my diet. I haven't missed a training session, missed a step. Like, I 100% done, ticked every box that was asked of me. So I was more relaxed than anything. Like, if I'm not going to win, there's nothing else I could have done.
Mm.
Like, that I'd done everything I could. So if I'm not going to win today, I couldn't have changed that. I'd done everything I needed to. And then it was, I think anyone who's been at a show before knows sort of how your class gets called out. You do one round of mandatories, and then they move you on stage dependent on where you're sort of going to place.
Mm.
So I got moved from the very end straight into the middle. Well, I didn't realize it was bang in the middle because I thought there were six of us. So I thought I was split in the middle between me and another chap, but there was only five. So that I had then held dead center for the rest of it. So that even then I was like, I'm not sure 100% I was going to win because I was split between me and Tom. The guy's name's Tom. Tom is a great athlete as well. He's a natural athlete. He came second at the Worlds 2 weeks after I competed against him.
Oh,
So
man.
he's really really good. And I mean, like, he's 2 years younger than me, natural, and he pushed me in quite a few shots. So he was really good.
Mm.
Um, but I wasn't 100% confident that I won until Tom was called second, basically.
Mm-hmm. And how did you find like the overall process of the prep? Like, obviously, it wasn't like strange for you going into it because you was already previously prepped, but like, how did the two preps differ? Like the whole thing entirely, like mindset, going into it, how you approached it, all those kind of things.
It was far easier this time because for one, I had the sort of idea of what was going to go. I mean, I'd done all the way up to 10 days out the previous one, so I sort of knew what to expect the whole way through. And I think what made it easier as well is I was more happy with the look going through it. That
Mm.
prep in 2021, I was dieting, but I was like, I really dislike the look. So
Mm.
there's not a motivating thing to do. Is like, you're dieting down, you're looking leaner, but you're like, I look shit. Like,
Yeah, I
it
feel
doesn't
like I'm
feel
in that.
good to.
I feel like I'm in that exact position right now because I've always been kind of like 50-50 with the idea of going enhanced, and like recently I've kind of been really opposed to it. But like, I'm not gonna lie, this weekend after like seeing Max, seeing like training at Rotherham and being around that kind of lifestyle where it's like for the first time, like it's very weird when you're surrounded by others and you kind of see like the passion for it compared to like
Yeah,
everyday life, and you're like everyone kind of like talks down about it and kind of gets you in a way where you're like, oh, this isn't like something I should pursue because like everyone like the
hmm,
the noise is too loud essentially. But like,
yeah,
yeah, I feel like essentially I'm in that exact position now where like I've never really committed to like a full off season. I've always kind of been kind of yo-yoing, between coaches, and it's always been like, right, let's get you in a priming phase. Let's start this off season. And every single time I've got to the point where, I could push more. I've just been like, I don't like how I look. I need to pull this back. And now, like,
yeah.
I've dieted down. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm happier than like what I looked like prior, but it's still like this is yeah, I need to do an off season and I need to be happy with my look before there's even a chance of me getting on stage because I wouldn't want to do that.
Yeah, but everyone does that. No, like, I speak to a lot of people in the industry, and no matter how much muscle you have,
Mm.
when you start dieting down, you feel small, and you think, I could be bigger. I could be bigger. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I know guys who are like 250, 260 plus when they're pretty much stage condition, who are like still feel small in certain muscle groups, and you're like, mate, you're literally enormous. Like, you are. But that's something that I think it's when you're dieting down, you have those days when you're like flat as a pancake and you just look wank, and that's everyone gets those days, and you look at yourself and you're like, really, like, what I'm putting all this effort in, and then you have a couple of high days, you're like, oh, okay, that's a lot better.
Mm. How did you find like dealing with those days like in prep? Because like obviously I don't, I mean, I'm at the stage now where I'm like, I look at myself and I'm like, you look like a 12-year-old. Do you know what I mean? Like, because I'm so flat. But I don't have the pressure of like, I need to step on stage, so I need to look a certain way. So like, how did you deal with like those mind battles kind of going through prep?
Well, the thing is, I've put a few athletes on stage before I prepped for my show,
Mm-hmm.
so it's like I know full well that it's not alien to me, and I understand why I look worse. You need to look worse to look better for the most part. Like, to get body fat off, you're going to look flat. You need to be depleted of glycogen. You're going to look flat. There's going to be sometimes you drive really, really flat and look really, really bad. But it's all part of the process. Like the way I look at it is you only need to look your best for 5 minutes.
Mm.
The rest of it is irrelevant, really. It's just one of those. And where I like Tom Pratt me, I'm confident in his ability that I'll say to him, like, mate, I feel really flat. And most of the times when I did, so I'm like, I feel like we're getting to the point of flatness where we could be at the risk of losing tissue. He usually very much agreed with what I say, and I agreed with all the decisions he said. So where I've worked with him so long, he knows my body so well. And the
How long
good
have you
thing with
been
Tom as
working with
well,
him?
he's 2.5 years.
Mm.
So it's like he's very good at taking feedback as well. That's one of his really good sort of accolades as a coach. Is like if I stress something to him in a check-in, he'll be like, "Yeah, no, that makes sense," and we'll go with what you said. So it's like I just had a lot of confidence in the setup we had in prep. That yeah, there are some days that I looks crap, and it does get to you. Like you'll take a few checking pictures. I mean, my client Aiden, because I used to see him in the morning all the time at the gym, he would tell you how many times I've literally kicked my tripod over. I'm just like, yeah, I look shit. And then it would take me 10 minutes. Like we'll then walk over to Starbucks, and 10 minutes later, I've cheered up a bit. But
Mm.
that's just part and parcel of it. It's perhaps more of a psychological game than physical, 100%.
What was your like? I know it's a corny question, but what was your biggest takeaways from your prep? Like, what was the biggest thing you kind of took away from that whole entire process?
I think one thing that stood out to me is that I always said to myself, I'm like, I'm never going to do well as an athlete, so I need to do well as a coach. But
Hmm.
what I sort of discovered, but like winning a show, and I was going to do another show, but I never did it in the end because basically what happened, I qualified for the universe. I couldn't do the universe because I was at the client show.
Hmm.
It's like I didn't want to just do another essentially what equivalent of like a regional for PCA. So I
Hmm.
thought I'd just go into off season. It's too far from the Brits. But I sort of come off stage and I was like, you know what, I could actually be a decent competitive bodybuilder. So I need to stop like telling myself like you're only going to just do coaching, which it doesn't mean that I'm putting any less effort into coaching because
Hmm.
you can manage both. But back in the past, I would be like saying off season, I'll be like if I'm doing check-ins and a meal time come up, I'd like to say to myself, I'm like, well, you're not that good an athlete anyway, to just carry on working, just stuff like that. Where this time it's a lot more structured. It's like, if you've got a good chance of doing well, I don't mean I think I'm ever going to go pro or any of that shit. I just mean like a competitive amateur.
Hmm.
But it's made me a lot more structured now, I think, because I actually believe that I can do well. Because the main thing I did my show for was simply I essentially thought I'll do a show just to prove to future clients that I've been there, done that, so
Yeah.
they can put trust in me.
Hmm.
Where now it's sort of lit the fire a bit more of like, oh, right, we'll do another one in 2025 and sort of pushing it a bit further that way.
Hmm. I loved I remember seeing one of your stories. I can't remember if I popped up to it, but like it was something that like I remember seeing it and I thought it was like a sick like outlook of like a different way of kind of looking at things. And I remember you saying it was like it was essentially you saying like you like I let myself it was like I'll let myself down, but I won't let the others around me down, like
Yeah,
going through that prep process.
yeah. So it's actually now become my team motto. Like it's literally so it's the words "prove them right." It's on our team clothing now,
Mhm.
and it was just something I thought about. It's like I watched. I don't know whose reel it was. It was a reel, and it's like, and it was sort of quite like passive aggressive and like proving, do it to prove your haters wrong. I was sort of thinking, I was like, that's really like, I don't know, it's just so negative. And I was thinking, like, instead of focusing on people who don't want you to do well, like, let's be honest, all of us, hopefully all of us, because it'd be quite sad if we didn't, but have support networks of people who believe that you can achieve stuff. So
Mm.
why are we like focusing on these negative people that we don't really need in our life instead of focus on people that like think you can do it, believe you can do it, and proving those people right? I think it's a very good way of like motivating yourself, especially like it was at the back end of prep, like steps were high, food was low, you're dragging arse a bit. just thinking like, oh, there's a lot of people who think you can achieve what you set out to. You wouldn't want to let those people down. I just feel like that's a lot more motivating than just proving someone who doesn't like you wrong. 'Cause they don't really care about that.
No, 100%. Like, I totally agree. Like, I've I feel like the place I am now, mindset wise, is the best I've ever been. And I can credit that due to being surrounded by like a community of people who are doing bodybuilding, but not just strictly competitive, like people living everyday life doing bodybuilding, people with parents doing bodybuilding. You know, you have the competitors, but like everyone in this group wants to see like everyone do the best for them.
Yeah,
It's like, I think especially like within bodybuilding, like you said, you're like we're all very driven to do well, but like you said, you're always going to have these days where like you think the worst of yourself and you kind of beat yourself up. So I think like turning that around and having that motto is a great way to kind of see it instead of just like always kind of like beating yourself up and trying to be like, oh, this is the best way to do it. Whereas just being like, I need to back the people in my corner. It's just so much better way of looking at
it's
things.
just positive, isn't it?
Mm.
It's just like, yeah, it's just positive because, like you said, you've got a good group of people, and I saw you did like with your coach's team. Was it your coach's team members that you was all with
Yeah,
at the
yeah.
weekend?
Mm.
It's like, why would you focus on people who don't like you, who are doubting you, rather than these group of individuals or people at your gym that you see that actually believe in you? Why not just shift your focus to that? I found it to be a big like help with mindset through prep. I think it just shifts things a bit more positive. I think.
Mm. Mm. So what's the plan now? You're in off season, right?
Yeah, I just started. So come out of prep, done a sort of 5 6 week rebound, held maintenance for a little while, got blood work done, and started off season. What I would consider, yeah, this week really sort of moved in and started off season now. So food's really high off the start, so it's only going to get higher. But
What's it at?
just 5,700 for first week.
Already? Jesus
Yeah,
Christ.
yeah, bang on 900 carb. So
Mad.
it almost like it's it's hard when because I need to push where I'm moving from juniors to adult classes. I need to put on a lot of tissue, but
Mm.
it's one of those where it's like even off season now, there's not much room for balance because it's like to get 5,600 calories in a day, you can't
Mm.
go out for the afternoon for 4 or 5 hours and just relax. Like you can't get your food in afterwards. So
Mm.
I'm gonna just try and so I've moved an hour away from where I used to live. It's sort of just me and my partner here. I think just for the next sort of 6 months, I'm gonna just go like all in to training, nutrition, and stuff like that, and just see where I land in 6 months' time, and just try and live that life as much as I can. Like I'm a big advocate of balance, but there are times you need to put your foot down and just go for it. If you've got goals like that, I suppose. It's different with like if you're working because we both coach with lifestyle clients. It's like you can't
Mm.
ask those guys to not have a cheat meal for 6 months when dieting and
Yeah, yeah,
to
yeah.
eat
You gotta weigh it
each.
up.
Yeah, yeah. It's dependent on the goal, isn't it? I've got a goal that I want to be a high level competitive amateur, and this is the life that they live. So
Mm.
that's what I got to do it. If my goal was just to be sort of looking good for summer, then I wouldn't be so strict on myself. But you just got to weigh up and keep it relative to what the goal is, right?
Mm-hmm. Um, Talking about coaching, like I'm trying to think how long I've followed you for, but like recently I've seen like your coaching's blowing up. In terms of, especially like since seeing like your athletes on stage. How what did you do to like starting off as a coach? How did you like gain knowledge? Like I'm sure it's the common stuff of like forums and this kind of stuff, but like what have you found kind of along the way to be the kind of best sources of like improving yourself as a coach directly?
Yeah. So for me, it's just like I think you probably know as well. You can't just do a PT qualification and be a good coach. It's
Oh
just
no,
like there's
it's
it's
like GCSE biology. It's like I find it honestly pisses me off because like there's so many PTs out there and it's like it's 2023 and like I can go to the gym down the road and there's a PT with like a 40-year-old client and she's like got bad knees, yet he's making her do like a squat on a Bosu ball. And you're like, what is going through these people's heads?
Mate, this is what I said. And there's a lot of people who go like, oh, I want to be a PT or an online coach, but it's such a saturated market.
Mm,
It's not saturated at all because
mm,
there's just so much shit. Like if you're good at it, it doesn't become saturated. You
mm,
can just separate yourself by what you do outside of it, and what that is do your own research, learn. I think one of the best tools to learn is working with other coaches,
mm.
like having a coach, learning off of those. Um, I've recently done a course. I don't know, I forgot what it's called it now. It's
Is it the
it's
anabolic
basically,
scientist?
yeah. So Will Dyson's one.
Yeah, I've seen that.
That's like blew my brain with the level of the level of knowledge that some people have in this industry. It's like, wow, that's ridiculous. Things like J3U,
Hmm.
Dr. Scott Stevenson, um, all of those sort of people, just spend time listening to them. Like even just when you're driving, if you've got an hour long drive, put a podcast on and listen instead of listening to music. Like you just be a sponge to everyone in the industry. And another thing as well, which I think is beneficial to becoming a good coach. You can have all the knowledge in the world, but you need to be good at working with people,
Yeah.
like understanding the psychological side of things, being empathetic to their situation. So it's a combination of having knowledge, but also being able to work with people and cater to each individual's needs. That's
Hmm.
how you're going to get the most out of people.
I always find as well, like direct application, like actually, taking this information from these sources and applying it to people and see how it works out. Because
Mhm,
I feel like there's so many people online who will just see like a trending topic, or they'll see like something like, oh, I'm gonna reverse ban this, I'm gonna reverse ban that, but they don't actually know the reason they're doing it for. And then
mhm,
they wonder why like they're not making any progress. And it's just because they're copying stuff from other people. They have no understanding of why they're doing it, but they just think regurgitating, all this information is just gonna like help them get from point A
mhm.
to point B. And it's like if you don't understand directly why
Yeah,
someone's doing this, then why are you even doing it in the first place?
mate. Honestly, it's like I would genuinely scream the next time I hear a 9 stone man tell me about a resistance profile on Instagram. Like it's fucking hell, man. It's you get what I mean. It's just like one trend pops up,
Mm,
it's the craze for a while. No
mm.
one looks into it themselves, and I think me and you said that we're guilty for it as well because I was like that with
Oh,
with
I've
cuffs and
been,
resistance bands. I was like,
yeah,
as soon as
yeah.
that resistance band thing started, I was putting them on everything,
Hmm.
everything.
Hmm.
I don't use them at all anymore, and I don't dislike them. I use them for certain clients, but you have to understand the reason. I think the industry is very much like it's very faddy, isn't it? It's like we see one thing and then we're all just everyone's on it.
Like everyone just jumps on one trend after the other. But like I've had this discussion with my mates recently, and I think when you're first starting off as a coach, like you wanna stand out from the rest. And I think there's like either two ways you go. And I think the most popular one normally is like most of these people starting off, they don't have like, a really good physique. So they're like, right, how can I, get attention from others? And it's normally like, right, I'm gonna educate myself to the nines and learn all this information. But it's like, why are you telling like Stephanie, like down the road, who's 40 about moment arms? Like it doesn't make sense and it's not
No.
applicable to her. And she doesn't even understand what's going on because it's literally like they're reading from a textbook. Like
Hmm.
like if in my opinion, a good coach is someone who can educate someone and make them understand it and simplify it in a way they can directly apply it, because otherwise
Hmm.
you're literally might as well just get a textbook and read it out to them, because that's what it literally sounds like.
Mate, and it's the thing that you're saying there is the nail on the head. And it's like, okay, so let's speak mainly on lifestyle clients because most of the people I work with are, and I think all the people you work with are,
Mm-hmm.
right? So yeah, it's cool understanding all these biomechanics and resistance profiles and what's the perfect profile to match this. Most of the people we coach don't even know how to train to failure when they start with us.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just start at the basics. Here is a nutrition plan to follow. Are you following that well? Okay, cool. That's one box ticked. What's your sleep like? Let's work on that. Let's sort your recovery out. Right. let's teach you how to train hard. Just do 5 movements each session. I don't care if the profile's matched to your hamstring perfectly, so it has a perfect drop off. I just want you to train that muscle to failure in
Mm,
any range. I don't care because you're going to grow.
mm.
Like, just start it simple, man. It's different. Like, if you're coaching 270-pound freaks who need those extra 1%, but
Exactly,
most
and
of the
that's
people
it.
we
It's the
coach,
1%. I think that's what
yeah,
people
yeah.
realize because it's like you look back like 20 years ago and people like, and the thing that annoys me the most, it's always on TikTok and it's always TikTok. It's like someone will be doing like an easy bar push down and someone will be like, you'd be better doing a dual rope push down. And it's like, yeah, there might be some that might be true to an extent, but like they act like doing that one exercise isn't gonna like get any
Mm,
growth. And they're arguing with someone who's been doing it for like 20 years, has massive triceps, and it's normally the 14-year-old
mhm.
who's seen like one TikTok, their favorite like TikTok influencer who's told them a dual rep push down is like the most amazing movement ever. And it's just like it still works. Like if you train hard, you eat well, you're gonna make progress. Like, yeah, these things can make a small change, but literally it is the 1%. And all this information which is being regurgitated is normally from the top coaches who are coaching like the 1%.
Yeah. And the thing is, if you sat some of these 15-year-olds down and go, right, you're telling me this profile doesn't work, let's say for a back movement. Okay. And then you go, okay, right. So where is the heaviest point in this resistance profile? And where are you strongest in your back in terms of like the range of motion? They couldn't answer it because they don't actually know what it means, what they're saying. They've just seen a video of someone doing a row and they go, this matches the profile. And they go, cool, I'm going to tell everyone that, but I don't actually know what that means.
Mm,
Like, it's crazy, isn't it? And you think, and just when I started training, I'm quite lucky that during that time I don't even think I had Instagram back then. That I just trained and had fun with it. Like, I
mm,
see all these kids and I feel like you're missing out on the funnest few years. Or it's just like go in the gym, you do something. Does it feel good? Yeah, okay, I'll keep doing that. Does it feel shit? No, I'm not going to do that again. That's used to that's how I used to decide what I'll train. It would just be
mm.
like, yeah, this feels good. I'm going to keep doing that. Now it's like, oh, we can't do that because so and so on TikTok said it's not right, and we can't do that. I mean, even now I still do close grip rows,
Mm,
like, and they're like forbidden in the industry. Like, I still do. Why? Because I like them. They feel good.
mm,
They might not be perfect, but if I enjoy it, I'm going to train hard on them because they're fun.
mm.
So I'm probably going to get more out of those than I'm sitting there setting up a gym pin with D handles and standing there with my arms like that to see how like, you know what I mean, to see how it's going to row in, and
Yeah, and
it's
make
taking
sure
me
it's
20
perfectly
minutes to set.
aligned and it's all in line with the fibers and everything like that. I think like I feel like recently I've made probably I've been the most consistent and like the yeah, like the most consistent I've been in a very long time. And I put that down just to actual enjoyment because I like you said, I've been that exact kid who was like, right, I need to optimize every single part of my training plan to make sure I'm progressing each week. And it gets to the point where you're like, I don't enjoy any of this. Like it becomes more of a task than something like when I first started off, I'd literally go to the gym, deadlift with shit form, like do a million sets of arms, and I enjoyed it. And yeah, did did it mean I got massive? Not really, but I still had fun doing it. And I feel like if you're just starting off, that needs to be the biggest thing because it's such a big change to your lifestyle that you need to get these small things in place first and just actually enjoy it. Because if you enjoy it, you're going to do it for longer. And then, like, when you get to the point where you're like, right, I've been doing this for a while, I enjoy this, but I want to get better, you can start implementing like small things here and there, but you don't need to like
Mhm.
optimize every single exercise. Like, everything has to be matched to a profile, everything has to be, the exact right way to do it. Like, recently, I've stopped logbooking like as extremely as I did because every single time like my numbers started dropping a little bit, I just throw a hissy fit, and it just ended up in me like feeling sad for myself, ordering a Domino's, and then hating myself even more. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I mean, I bought one yesterday, but it's the first time I've logbooked in ages. Like, it's one of those, mate. I think it's just, I think people need to take it back to the roots, and it's meant to be a fun thing to do. Like, go to the gym, track. I don't mean like I'm a big believer in, yes, track your training. Yes, you want to execute movements accurately and intensely, but it doesn't have to be so like to the gram with everything. It's if there's no enjoyment in it, you're not going to apply yourself to it. So just you need to keep that enjoyment factor there. I think spending 20 minutes setting up a movement, is that optimal really? If you're spending more time in the gym setting things up and making sure that it's like pinpoint accurate, is that optimal?
Hmm.
And one other
Especially if
thing you've
it's
got to
like a
look at,
lifestyle client who doesn't want to be in the gym for that
yeah,
long. Like, why are you telling them to do all this? Like, don't get me wrong, yeah, you want them to have an effective workout, but there are ways you can program around that because realistically, like most lifestyle people, going over an hour is like a long time for them. So,
yeah,
getting this setup and all that kind of stuff, they're not going to enjoy it and they're going to be like, right, this isn't manageable for my life.
yeah. I think as well what we need to do is like with anything, any sport, look at the top percentile of, and I know obviously genetics play a huge role, but
Mhm.
look what they're doing. I mean, watch Samson's YouTube of him training. He's just training. Like there's nothing, there's nothing fancy about it.
Mm.
What about Dorian, Blood and Guts? Like he's a home country's Mr. Olympia, won excessive amounts of times. Was that, I mean, watch that. It's just
Well, it's like Sam Sulek
really
now, isn't
intense.
it? Like he's just blown.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
absolutely blown up, and like I'm not hating on the guy at all because he's having fun with it. But I mean, like the guy's eating Krispy Kreme donuts for breakfast. Do you know what I
yeah.
mean? Like he's just having fun with it. And yeah, look, could he do it better? And yeah, look, I'm sure he will later down the line. But for the moment,
Mhm,
he's enjoying. He's doing his workouts whatever way he wants. He doesn't give a shit about optimized training. He's just going in there, throwing
mhm.
weights around and having fun with the process. And if you look at his physique, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, he's stacked, and obviously the steroids play a role because I know everyone in
Mhm.
the comments like they
Mhm.
see his videos and they're just like, oh, steroids, steroids. Yeah, they do, but everyone takes them. Like, I know people on steroids who look half as good as Sam, who are doing all this optimal stuff. And yes, Sam. To be fair, Sam's training is like it's borderline horrific, but
I watch it
it's
and I'm like,
doing
my joints hurt.
yeah, but it's doing enough for him to grow. So it just shows that you can. It doesn't have to be. I think that it's finding a fine balance of right. We want it to be somewhat optimal and safe, but we don't want it to just turn into a science lesson in the gym.
Mm.
It needs to be. I think you need to sit somewhere in the middle of that. Do you know who I think is perfect at this? JP.
Yeah. Mm.
He's like meathead, yes, but he's understanding, his execution, his intent, like everything. I think he sits bang in the middle of where it needs to be. I
Mm.
think he's like the prime example. And I know Jordan gets injured a lot, but that's just because of how strong he is. Like
Yeah.
that's not nothing to do with he's accuracy and intensity. That's all in a good spot, but it's just because he's so fucking big and strong. That's what he needs to do to grow.
Mhm.
But I think he's or Justin Shire. He's another great example.
Mm.
He sits bang. You watch his training. He trains hard, but the intensity, like
And
I'm
the
sorry, the
accuracy.
accuracy
Yeah.
is spot on. He's still logbooks, but he's not doing it to an excess where it's probably like detracting from his progress.
Mhm. I was gonna say, is this the first year where you've had clients compete?
Yes, yes.
And was it just natural clients you took through the process, or did you have enhanced clients as well?
Um, just natural. I know I had one enhanced guy back end of the year. No, say back end of the year, so sort of mid year. Two natural guys at the beginning of the year.
And they
So
they won their shows, right?
yeah, so between the two of them, I think we got 5 wins and a top three um, out of 6 shows.
Hmm.
So it was they done really well.
How did you find that process, like coaching the athletes through it compared to like?
Mate, they made it an absolute joy. Like James and Aiden, it's very much the case of right. I don't have to ask if they've done their steps. I don't have to ask if they've done their cardio. Don't have to ask if they follow their plan. So they just gave me such a use like they gave me all the tools that I needed that nothing was fucked about.
Mhm.
Yes, they asked questions and they asked for adjustments, but they never went off on their own back and did anything silly.
Mhm.
Like so, it gave me a real good opportunity, which I really appreciate from everything, to to actually show my coaching ability in the industry, because without them being as adherent to their plans, we wouldn't have got the placings that they did. I mean, Aiden competed. He never competed in any natural shows. He was against assisted people in all these shows,
Hmm.
and he done well. But yeah, I really enjoyed that process. It wouldn't have been as enjoyable if I didn't have those two with the way that, like, with how coachable they are.
Hmm.
But I've had both of those for 2 years prior, so it's like for them, I've taken them through dieting phases multiple times before. I've photo shoot prepped both of them in the years past, so I've got them relatively lean. So it was a really good starting point for me to sort of push into the competitive coaching side of things, because I started in quite a comfortable position with two people that I knew that I could sort of show my skills with, rather than taking someone on, like someone messaging you at 10 weeks out, like, oh mate, can you help me out here, and then just being an
Yeah.
absolute nightmare.
Hmm.
So
No.
yeah, it was, I really really enjoyed it, and going to their shows and seeing them do well, and you get a lot from their emotions as well, like seeing someone win a show and
Oh mate,
you've
I'd cry
watched.
my eyes out if I got a client on stage day one. I'd
Yeah,
down like
and
I
it's
can't
like
like,
you see them for 20 weeks dieting, and you speak to them on those really low days, and you can feel their energy, like their drive to get this job done. And it's like sometimes I'm doing their check-ins, like with Aiden. Now I had him on 25 carb a day for 2 weeks,
Jesus, yeah,
because we just needed, like,
to do.
this is where, yeah, it just had to be done.
Mm.
But just to see him every day just show up and do it, and then to get rewarded with 4 wins was, yeah. He even won a classic physique show as well. We just dropped him in it at a, yeah, yeah. He managed
Just
to win that as
getting
well.
all the
Yeah.
medals, mate.
Mm.
Did you take them through? Obviously, you said you took them through photo shoots. Did you take them through off seasons as well, or was it just like kind of like small things? Or
So this is one thing. So these are the me and Aiden did a photo shoot prep. He
mm,
then done his off season on his own. He will tell you as well that didn't go great. He come back to me at the start of prep at like 20 weeks out. And yeah, he was way too fat, and we're never going to do that again. I'm doing his off season this time, and we sort of learned that that's the way forward. So that was a very tricky, and that's why he was on 25 carb at the end. So this is a lesson learned to anyone: don't get fat in your off season, otherwise you're going to suffer really really hard on prep.
mm,
But it's all a learning curve, because I would have loved to have done his off season, but he wanted to try his own thing. He done what any of us would do, is you want to grow so fast when you've not got a coach saying, look, take your time.
mm.
You will just eat the world, because you just get focused on scale weight, and you're like, if that's going up, I'm getting bigger.
And
And
then
he
your
just trashed,
composition just
yeah,
goes to that of like a fucking rubber ball. It's just terrible.
yeah, and he trashed his digestion as well. So like we fixed that, come down, and we're working together through this off season, and he's just flying. Like, he's testament to him really, because he's consistency is unmatched. He's like the most consistent athlete. Well, him and James both are. James, they're on par. The consistency in both off season and dieting is ridiculous, because a lot of people struggle in growing phases
Mm.
with consistency. That's something I've struggled with as well in the past. Is when you're in off season, it's easy to go, I'll just have a pizza for my last meal
Yeah.
instead. Like, it's calories are calories, and them two don't. They're just like, they are to the button with everything. It's crazy to see.
It's like you said though, like within an off season, especially like where you're at now, especially when you're like in the depths of it, you fully have to commit like most of your days to it. Because if you miss one meal or one meal timings off, you're not going to be able to get all that food in, have it digest properly, be able to train. And like I remember at the back end of my off season, I mean, I only got up to 85 kilos, but like I remember like it would I'd wake up a bit later and I'd justify being like, I need to get 2,000 calories in. Oh, I'm just gonna throw a Domino's in because it is calories, and you just justify that in your head. But like it isn't the
Mhm.
same. It doesn't digest properly. You don't. It isn't like
Yeah. Then you
distributed.
can't, because you've ruined your stomach and you've just
Mm.
got the shits all day. it's it's terrible. Thank you. It's one of those, mate. And that's what I want to do this year, because I've never been able to do it the way them two do.
Mm. Mm,
That's me as their coach. And I'm like, I've never. Sorry, I'm just putting a drink on the floor. I've never been able to. I think literally it's like external motivation from watching them two.
mm.
Just and that's what I'm doing now. And it's like you said, in off season, you think, oh, calories are calories, but man, as soon as you lose hold of your digestion, which is very, very easy doing things like you said, like I'll just have a Domino's here. You've
Mm,
ruined your off season. You're not going to grow efficiently.
mm. One more thing I wanted to touch on because I want to say this is you. I'm sure it's you. Did you train with Hollingshead, right?
I did, yeah,
Yes, I
yeah.
knew it. I fucking knew it. Game. How was that experience?
So that was my partner actually sorted that out. Mate, I wish it was another time that it happened. So basically,
You in the
I
depths, right?
no, I competed the day before.
Oh God.
It was the day after my show. My coach was like, "Don't train today," because we used the diuretics. So I used the diazide the day before,
Mhm.
well, which would have been 2 days before. So anyone who uses the diazide knows you feel like shit for days after using it, man. It's horrible. Um,
Diazide, by the
if
way, that flushes like all the water out of your system, right?
yeah,
Like,
it flushes fluid out, but it's harsh. It's really harsh. I only used a quarter of one. I felt horrible. Um, just cracking headache. It was. I actually that night after I trained with James, I went to a Nando's. I was eating a Nando's because I got like 2 meals off between.
mm,
Felt like my head was going to explode. Just like I don't like the pressure in my head was ridiculous. So it was such a good session. I wish I could have been a bit more present, but mate, I was struggling to drag myself through it. I was ill, man. I felt so ill. I just wanted to be in bed, but I was like, I'm not missing this. But basically, my partner was filming for James's YouTube, so she's a videographer.
mhm.
Um, and Nathan, who was the other guy there, Nathan Heckles, super heavyweight. He's really, really good. He said to come along and jump in for the session. So that was your gym. That must have worked, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah. No, I remember seeing it. Like I saw James when he was training with Hard. Is it Hardy? Hardy? Um,
Hardy Chupin, yeah.
yeah, and like it's one of those things where like you see them in person and you're like you can't like honestly believe like how big they are. Like I remember
Mhm.
just standing there and I was just like, how is this actually possible? Like it doesn't look physically real. And like
Yeah.
he's just such a nice guy as well. I was just like that must have been such a sick
I
experience.
got I got a picture, like I don't know if you saw it, of me and him with our quads. And it
Mhm.
was just literally like a child's leg next to his. But mate, he's a really nice guy. He was you wouldn't expect it, but they just like he just talks to you as if like you wouldn't think you're talking to an Olympian. Like, he just speaks to you like a normal bloke, which is nice because
Mhm.
there are a lot of people at the top of the industry who are just like a bit arrogant with
Mhm.
where they are. But
Mhm.
yeah, no, he's sweet. Mate, if you want to see someone who's big, have you seen Samson in person recently?
No, I mean I've seen
Jesus.
his visuals recently and like I know he's like ridiculous. Like he's just his shape, his size, like everything about him is ridiculous. But I
I
can't.
saw him the other day at True Athlete. Saw JP there as well. He's a meatball of a human. But Samson is something else, man. He'll win the Olympia this year. But as soon as I saw him at True Athlete, so I've seen him a few times, but
Mm,
when I saw him at True Athlete, I was like, he's winning the Olympia. There's no one's going to beat that. It's
mm.
so big,
It's
and
just
he's
his
so
condition throughout the
beautifully
off
put
season
together.
as well. Like he doesn't even look like he's in an off season. It's ridiculous.
I
Like his
think it's like
muscle belly.
330 pounds, and he still looks like 10 weeks out. I
Yeah,
think that's heavy. That's really fucking heavy.
that's wild. All right, mate. We'll wrap it up there.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming on the podcast. To anyone watching, question boxes will be up next week. Any questions, fire them our way. Thank you for tuning in. Share if you listen, and tag us in your stories. Cheers.